Hey everyone! New stories today. So happy to see you on my channel. What do you like more, winter or summer? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe. One day when I was on the phone with my aunt and uncle, they told me they had heard a very strange story from a friend. Apparently in the 1950s, there was a child who went missing in our city. She was only 4 years old and she disappeared in the evening while she was taking a bath. The mother and father were downstairs watching TV. When they heard their daughter's screams, they ran upstairs to the bathroom, but the door was closed. They tried to open it, but it was locked. Just then, the father heard the sound of whispering coming from behind the door. He shouted his daughter's name, but there was no response. Just an uneasy silence. The mother flew into a panic. She ran out into the street, screaming and calling for help. One of their neighbors came running to see what he could do, and together they managed to kick down the bathroom door. The room was in darkness, and there was a strange smell in the air. When they turned on the lights, the parents almost fainted at what they saw. The bathroom was a mess. The floor and walls were covered in blood. Trembling with fear, the father ran to the bathtub. The water was stained with blood, but the little girl was gone. The room was empty. The windows were tightly shut. The door had been locked. There was no way for her to get out, but somehow the little girl had disappeared. She was never found. The police investigated, but they were baffled. It seemed too impossible to figure out, and the mystery of her disappearance was never solved. Later, the mother died. The father lost his mind and was confined to a mental home. I thought this story was fiction, until a few days ago. It all began when I heard a strange noise coming from my bathroom. It frightened me because there was nobody else in the apartment. It was a low rumbling sound. I decided to take a look, and when I opened the bathroom door, I was shocked to see that all of the shelves with shampoos and gels had been dumped in a heap on the tiled floor. I almost screamed with fear and ran to my bedroom, locking the door behind me. All of a sudden, the lights went out and the room was plunged into total darkness. I tried to calm myself down, telling myself it was just a coincidence. Then something happened that I will remember for the rest of my life. I heard the sound of laughter. It was the quiet laughter of a young girl, and it sounded like it was right there in the room with me. I heard small footsteps coming towards me in the darkness. I screamed and tried to flee, but in the pitch black, I couldn't find the door handle. My hands searched and searched, but all I could feel was smooth glass. In a panic, I began to get disoriented. The darkness was so complete, I couldn't see a thing. My hands roamed along the walls, desperately searching for the door. I was more terrified than I had ever been in my life. I was shaking with fear. The cackling laughter got louder and louder. I couldn't see anything. I started beating on the glass, throwing myself against it like a trapped animal. I don't know how long it lasted, but all of a sudden, there was a loud crash as the glass shattered. The light hit my eyes, and I found myself lying outside in the corridor. I picked myself up, and without daring to look back, I ran as fast as I could. I dashed down the stairs, burst through the front door, and fled out onto the street. I didn't know where to go or what to do. All I knew was that I couldn't go back to my apartment. I called my aunt and uncle and told them what happened. They apologized to me. They said they were sorry they told me about her, but they didn't know what else to do. The little girl had been haunting them for days, ever since they heard about her. They told me she haunts anyone who knows her story, and the only way to get rid of her is to tell someone else. Ever since then, I haven't been able to sleep. Every time I try to close my eyes, I hear her cackling laughter. It's driving me insane. But tonight is a special night because tonight I will finally be able to get a good night's rest. Whoever you are, thank you for listening my story, because now the little girl is behind you. Turn around and say hello to her. This is the true story of the haunted painting, the most bizarre and frightening tale I've heard in quite a while. This is the true story of the haunted painting, one of the most bizarre and frightening tales I've heard in quite some time. In February of 2000, the haunted painting was listed for sale on eBay, and an auction began. Some wonder if the story was true or merely a clever marketing ploy. The painting, identified as item 251789217 on eBay, quickly gained fame as the haunted eBay painting. The description provided by the seller was strange. When we received this painting, we thought it was really good art. A picker had found it abandoned behind an old brewery. At the time, we wondered a little why a seemingly perfectly fine painting would be discarded like that. Today, we don't. One morning, our 4.5-year-old daughter claimed that the children in the picture were fighting and coming into the room during the night. Now, I don't believe in UFOs or Elvis being alive, but my husband was alarmed. To my amusement, he set up a motion-triggered camera for the nights. After 3 nights, there were pictures. The last 2 pictures shown are from that stakeout. After seeing the boy seemingly exiting the painting under threat, we decided the painting has to go. The seller continued with a dramatic warning. Please judge for yourself. Before you do, please read the following warning and disclaimer. Warning: do not bid on this painting if you are susceptible to stress-related disease, faint of heart, or unfamiliar with supernatural events. By bidding on this painting, you agree to release the owners of all liability in relation to the sale or any events happening after the sale that might be contributed to this painting. This painting may or may not possess supernatural powers that could impact or change your life. However, by bidding, you agree to exclusively bid on the value of the artwork, with disregard to the last 2 photos featured in this auction, and hold the owners harmless in regard to them and their impact, expressed or implied. The painting was described as 24 by 36 inches in size, and the sellers addressed various questions, such as confirming no odors, voices, or physical residues were associated with it. However, they remained firm that the painting should leave their house, seeking advice on how to bless the home after its removal. The painting itself depicted a boy, around 5 or 6 years old, with a scowling face, standing beside a life-sized wooden doll girl with hollow eyes. The doll held what appeared to be a battery with dangling clips. The 2 figures stood in front of a dark building with small hands reaching from the shadows, creating an eerie atmosphere. The final 2 photographs, captured by the motion-triggered camera, allegedly showed changes in the painting. In one image, the doll's mouth was open, though it was closed in earlier shots. After the auction began, viewers reported strange experiences, including hot flashes, spectral voices, blackouts, and feelings of mind control. A Native American spiritualist claimed the painting contained evil and had to cleanse his house after viewing it online. The painting sold for $1,025 to a buyer known as Ionia 7, who stated they were more interested in the painting's artistic composition than its supernatural reputation. The painting, titled "The Hands Resist Him," was attributed to an unnamed artist who likely created it sometime between 1965 and 1975. Despite many accounts of strange phenomena, the new owner claimed to experience no unusual effects. However, they received thousands of emails from people describing physical illness and distress after viewing images of the painting online. Rumors swirled that both the gallery owner who displayed the painting and the critic who reviewed it died within a year of the exhibition. While some dismissed the story as a hoax, others remain unsettled by the painting's eerie presence, calling it an unsettling example of surrealism with a dark legacy. For years, a mysterious fortune-telling game has been very popular with teenage girls in Japan. They call it Future Husband, or Future Spouse. According to the legend, if you play the game, you will find out who you will marry. They say that the game must be played with all lights off, beside a window, in the moonlight. If you place a razor blade in your mouth at midnight and look into a basin filled with water, you will see the face of your future husband or wife reflected in the water. One high school girl heard about the fortune-telling game and decided to try it out immediately. The girl had never had a boyfriend and was worried that she would never fall in love. Her worst nightmare was that she would never get married. Her lovesick curiosity made her desperate to find out what her future husband would look like. She took one of her father's razor blades from her parents' bathroom cabinet. Then she took a basin from the kitchen cupboard and filled it with water. Finally, she turned off the lights, opened the curtains, and waited until the clock struck midnight. Carefully placing the razor blade in her mouth, she cautiously peered into the basin. In the water, she saw a man's face staring back at her. The girl was so surprised that she let out an involuntary scream. At the same time, the razor dropped out of her mouth and fell into the basin. The water became stained with a red color, like blood. The girl recoiled in fright and started trembling. A few moments later, when she looked into the basin again, the water was crystal clear and the razor was sitting at the bottom. The girl was confused. Was it just an illusion? Had her eyes been playing tricks on her? Had she really seen a face, or had it just been the moon's reflection in the water? The girl decided to forget about it and went to bed. The years passed quickly and the girl grew into an adult. She left school, attended university, and eventually found a job. She also began dating a nice man. It was her first boyfriend, and he was very gentle and receptive to her wishes. He had a friendly personality, was always witty and funny, and the fact that he made a lot of money certainly didn't hurt. However, there was one thing about him that was very strange. He always kept his face hidden behind a large white surgical mask. In Japan, it is not unusual to see some people wearing masks like this to prevent catching colds. Indeed, when they first met, the man explained that he had a cold and didn't want her to catch it. At the time, she accepted the explanation, but as the months passed, he continued to wear the mask and never took it off. Every time they met or went on a date, the man would be wearing the mask. If she ever asked him to remove it, he would angrily refuse. Despite the strange situation with the mask, the girl came to love this man more and more. Finally, the day came when he asked her to marry him. The girl began to think, How can you marry someone when you have never seen their face? There aren't supposed to be any secrets between husbands and wives. What could he be hiding from her? She was confident that her feelings for him would not change, no matter what he looked like under the mask. One night, the girl took him aside and told him that she would only marry him if he trusted her enough to show her his face. She asked him to remove the mask. At first, the man refused, but when the girl insisted, he eventually gave in. He turned his back to her and slowly unhooked the mask from around his ears. Then, he suddenly spun around to face her, and the girl gasped in horror. His face was horribly disfigured by a large scar that ran from his eye, down his cheek, and across his mouth to his chin. The wound was so deep that it looked as if it had been gouged with a sharp knife. It was painful to look at. "What's wrong with your face?" she asked timidly. "What happened to you?" The man's eyes narrowed in anger. His face bore a hateful expression. "You should know," he growled. "You dropped the razor blade." One summer evening, my little brother and I were home alone. We were play fighting, as brothers do, and chasing each other around the house. I ended up chasing him into our parents' room. There were no windows in our parents' room, so when the lights were off, it was pitch black. I thought it would be funny to play a trick on my brother, so I decided to scare him and turn out the lights. I was standing by the doorway, so when he wasn't looking, I hit the light switch and left the room, closing the door behind me. He was left alone in the darkness. I put my ear to the door to listen to him panic. I heard him say, "What are you doing?" I realized he thought I was still in the room. "What are you doing?" he said. "You're freaking me out. Please stop." I wondered what he was talking about. "I'm not joking," he cried. "Get away from me." Get away from me? I thought. Why did he just say get away from me? "Ha ha, I'm not even in there," I laughed. All of a sudden, I heard my brother scream. It was a loud, blood-curdling scream. It freaked me out, and I decided to open the door and let him out. But when I turned the handle, it wouldn't budge. It was locked. My little brother was still screaming and begging for help. I started to panic. I had no idea what to do. I kept jiggling the handle and pushing on the door as hard as I could, but it wouldn't open. My brother was in trouble. He needed me, and I couldn't help him. All of a sudden, he stopped screaming. I tried the door handle again, and to my surprise, it opened easily. It wasn't locked at all. Relieved, I opened the door and turned on the light. My brother was cowering in the corner, sobbing uncontrollably. I calmed him down and brought him out of the room. Downstairs, I finally got him to explain what had happened. He told me that when the lights went out, he was scared. Then, his eyes slowly adjusted to the darkness. There was a little bit of light leaking in from the crack under the door. He said he saw a figure standing in the corner with its back to him. He thought it was me. When he asked, "What are you doing?" he said I turned and started walking slowly across the room towards him. He couldn't make out my face. He couldn't make out any features at all. It was just a dark figure walking towards him. He said the figure came closer and closer until it was standing over him, staring down at him. Then he saw a hand coming towards him and grabbing him by the shoulder. The touch of the hand was freezing cold, and its grip was very strong. It hurt him, and he screamed in pain. When I opened the door and turned on the light, the figure was gone. To this day, my brother refuses to talk about this. Whenever anyone brings it up, he simply leaves the room. He has admitted that he is bothered by what happened that day, and he still has nightmares about it from time to time. He still doesn't have any explanation for what happened.